Azerbaijan sees itself as the bridge between the Orient and the West.
Firstly, Ambassador Vakiv Sadikov, welcome to our studios.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about the history of Azerbaijan?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity to be here with you, and I thank also your viewers. Azerbaijan, the country which I had the honor to represent here in Geneva, is a relatively small country with a population of 10 million people, area of about 86,000 square kilometers, lost in the southeastern corner of Europe at the shores of the Caspian Sea. Well, the history of my country has several periods, and I would start probably with the remote period when Azerbaijanis were initially the followers of the Zoroastrian religion, and then it changed into the so-called Caucasian Albanian Christianity, and then since 8th century we became Muslims. And Azerbaijan became the part of the former Russian Empire at the beginning of the 19th century, and that continued up to the beginning of the 20th century when the Russian Empire collapsed and the first Azerbaijani Democratic Republic appeared on the world's map. Although the lifespan of that country was too short, it existed only for 2 years until 1920. Then we became part of the former Soviet Union, which collapsed in 1991, and in 1991 we restored the independence. The short life of the first Azerbaijani Democratic Republic was very important for the psychology of the nation, because it was the first in many respects. It was the first parliament in the world was in Azerbaijan at that time. The first newspaper, the first university, the first multi-party parliament. So that was a very important part of our history. And since 1991, Azerbaijan, after restoration of its independence, have transformed the life in our country in all respects. The new constitution, new economic system, integration into the world economy, world politics. We are members of all the major international organizations, of all pan-European organizations. And so we believe that the future for the country is quite good. It's based on a solid basis of the nation's will, of nation's vision of its future, and on the sound policy of the government, both in political, humanitarian and economic fields.
And so how has the country developed, particularly in regards to the energy sector?
Well, Azerbaijan has always been linked to energy, because actually, well, probably your viewers don't know this, but Azerbaijan was the first country in the world where the industrial production of oil started as early as the beginning of the 19th century. And in general, in the oil industry, Azerbaijan, in the development of the oil industry, Azerbaijan presented a lot of novelties, like, for example, the first oil pipeline, which connected at the middle of 19th century Baku and Georgia, the Black Sea coast of Georgia. The first oil tanker in the modern sense was developed and put into operation in the Caspian Sea at the second half of the 19th century. By the beginning of the 20th century, Azerbaijan alone was producing more than 50% of the world's output of oil. So oil has always been a very important and integral part of our economy. In the modern period after 1991, Azerbaijan opened up its resources for international cooperation, and we have signed dozens of the production sharing agreements with major oil companies of the world, like BP, Shell, Mobil, and many others. In that period, we started also to develop our huge gas fields, which are like oil fields, are mostly in the Caspian Sea. And today we're honored to be producing a lot of gas, and not only for internal consumption, but also for export. These days we're developing the very important economic project which is called the Southern Gas Corridor, which is actually the huge pipeline connecting the Caspian Sea through Turkey, Greece, Albania to the shores of Italy. And that's going to be the biggest infrastructural project within the EU. We have already started this work, and I think that by 2020 the Azerbaijani gas will start to go to Europe. So this is very briefly on where we are in the field of energy.
And how has Azerbaijan cooperated with international organizations?
Well, our cooperation with international organizations started immediately after the collapse of the Soviet Union, after restoration of our independence. Cooperation is going through many directions, depending on the track. We are members of all major European organizations like OSCE, Council of Europe. We cooperate closely with the European Union, with the European Parliament. We are members of all major UN agencies. So we work both in political field, we work in the economic field, in humanitarian field. That is why, for example, my work here in Geneva is important for our country, because Geneva is one of the major UN centers. A lot of work in the field of development, humanitarian affairs, economy, trade is being done here in Geneva. In particular, I can mention our cooperation with the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. We are holding a lot of joint projects. The cooperation is on a relatively high level. As an example, I can say that, for example, in October we are going to host the 7th Global Forum on Energy for Sustainable Development, which is an important annual event which will be bringing together hundreds of experts from all over the world on how to use energy for sustainable development. We also want to contribute in a humble way to this, because these days we start to shift our center of focus in the energy field from traditional oil and gas sources to renewable energy sources. We already have done initial steps in this regard, and we believe that this forum will give us a lot of opportunities to check where we are and to try to get to know the experience of our partners.
Well, Ambassador, thank you so much for coming in today and chatting with us. It was a pleasure having you in our studio.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me, and the pleasure was mine.
That's all from myself and the Ambassador of Azerbaijan, Vakil Shadakov. But if you like this video, be sure to give it a like and comment on our website, Dukascopy.tv.